Well, to talk to us more about the summit, we are now joined by the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, that's Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. Good evening, Minister.
Good evening.
Well, Minister, some of the key issues that were discussed during the 40th ordinary session of the Executive Council is the socio-economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the continent. Did yesterday and today's meetings propose any specific interventions?
Yeah, in fact, yes, the impact of COVID was one of the issues that was discussed, and the discussions were based on the report which was given by President Ramaphosa, being the one who had the responsibility to champion the African program related to COVID pandemic with special attention to vaccination. What has really come out is that Africa has learned a lot from the COVID, and there is now a strong proposal for Africa to be ready for any disasters that may occur, especially the pandemic. And that's why a decision has been taken to set up a pandemic fund at the AU, and now also to operationalize the African Center for Disease Control. So these are the issues that has been elaborated on. But again, there was a discussion looking onto the African economic recovery post-COVID. And that one was discussed based on a presentation that was made by the president of the Africa Development Bank. And following those discussions, it was felt that it's necessary for the Africa to establish the African Financing Stabilizing Mechanism, and also to call for the substantial 16th replenishment of the Africa Development Fund that will enable Africa to meet her grand needs. And based on that, this year there will be some extraordinary summit. One is focusing on industrialization, and because the issue of peace and security was high in the agenda, being an important element for development, there was also another extraordinary summit on terrorism, which is going to take place in May. Well, the one on industrialization will take place in November.
Now,
and
Minister,
of course, Africa will participate fully in the Global Water Forum, which is taking place in March in Senegal. So all these are really aimed to make Africa to be resilient when a pandemic or any disaster occurs in the continent
now,
and
Minister,
in the world.
while the heads of state are discussing the post-COVID recovery, economic recovery of the continent, also setting up of a pandemic fund, and basically for the continent to be self-financing, we cannot also rule out that there has been a surge in terms of coups in West Africa. Was this also discussed, or is it on the agenda?
Yes, that was discussed. It's a worrisome situation because Africa was starting to experience a continent which is free from coups. Unfortunately, what happened in the past month is a disturbing factor. And that is why Africa now, the summit, felt that there is a need for the participation of all sectors of our society in trying to underline the importance of peace. That will include women and the youth. So that is why, in addition to the panel of wives, which the African Union is having, as well as the one of the panel of wives, which is made up of women, a decision was taken to have a panel of wives of the young people. And this is going to complement the Africans program of the young people for peace. so that there will be a comprehensive approach to how we can ensure that there is peace and stability in the continent. In discussing this whole issue, of course, the four countries, there are 4 countries now which are suspended, and the regions where they came from, for example, now ECOWAS,
yes.
They are now having a responsibility to oversee the return to democracy of those countries and then report to the AU, especially to the Peace and Security Council. I have to mention here that Namibia is among the new countries that have been elected today to serve as members of the Peace and Security Council for the next 3 years. And it's the Peace and Security Council that has the responsibility to oversee the maintenance of peace and the conflict resolution in the continent.
Now, Minister, just before I let you go, time and again, AU has called that the continent should silence the guns, and there was a deadline set to this objective or the motive. Still, the military takeovers are happening in some parts, West Africa to be specific. Isn't it perhaps time that another deadline is set?
There is no deadline set, but that particular project of silencing the gun will remain top in the agenda of the AU. And the African Union is also making an analysis as to what are really the causes. And one of the issues that have been looked to is how we can strengthen our governing institution in our country, and how we should also address the social and economic needs of the people, particularly job creation, because we have many of our young people in the continent who are unemployed, and they can easily now make partner up with those in the uniform, and then we see what we are experiencing in the West Africa of late. You realize that these are really young people who are in uniform, and not really even generals. You are talking about colonels who are leading these coups which are happening. So there is that decision that we must really seriously address the social and economic needs of our people so that they cannot be manipulated, and as a result you will see that peace and stability in the continent is threatened.
Any talks on external influence, foreign powers?
Yes, when you look at because another issue in addition to the coups, we are also seeing that the increase of terrorism and violent extremism which are happening in our continent. And you see that there is foreign influence there. Another issue is that you noted whenever Africa discovered its strategic resources, and then that day you find the violent extremist and terrorist activities are emerging. So definitely there's an element of foreign interest, and this is another thing that the African Union has to look into seriously.
Thank you so much for that update, Minister. That was the
Thank you very much.
Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, speaking to us from Addis Ababa.